Okay, well, let's continue going through the PowerPoint, and then we'll go over and I'll show some of the Mind Tap features and talk about what's due and so forth. Um, the hacker culture. Hacker, a person who attempts to expand knowledge of computing through experimentation. Uh, it's an interesting definition. Um, Not sure if that's always true. Expand knowledge of computing through experimentation. Yeah, sometimes they're just trying to get money, trying to screw with people. So
Breaking the companies through exploitation.
yeah, idea of sharing knowledge is fundamental to hackers. Hacker culture set the stage for the development of Linux. Um, some of the hackers, I never have understood their mentality. If I had the knowledge to do what they can do in some of these hackers and so forth, I wouldn't do it just to screw with people. I wouldn't do it just to put an image on Microsoft's website, to ridicule them, so forth. I'd make money. I'd steal millions of dollars from people from banks, and I'd go live in a country where they couldn't extradite me. Yeah, it's just like these people are smart. Why in the world are they sitting in their mother's basement, doing this? Yeah, doing the most petty things. Um,
On 4chan.
Cracker, someone who illegally uses computers for personal benefit or to cause damage. Richard Stallman, a famous hacker, worked at MIT, formed the Free Software Foundation to encourage free software development. I think that's pronounced GNU. GNU project, free OS project started by Richard Stallman to promote free development for a free OS that was not Unix. GNU project led to publication of GNU public license GPL, legalized free distribution of source code, and encouraged collaborative development. And this hacker culture of collaborative development set the stage for Linux. It's interesting because when you look at Unix and Linux, they're so close. But a lot of the Unix didn't have the GUI side. So the same commands I used back in the day with Unix, the same ones used in Linux for the shell.
Are they built in the same architecture?
I'm guessing the base source code is still. They probably didn't redo all that. They just copied the Unix source code over and started modifying it for Linux. First developed by Linus Torvalds, if I'm saying his name right, in 1991, and published under that GNU license. Linux kernel was developed collaboratively and centrally managed. Hackers developed Linux add-on packages and distributions. Again, there's not one person sitting there developing these. When I say the kernel, it's again just it's software. You have a group of people that are working together to keep advancing it. You can get involved in these projects. I don't know if I can remember where they're really at, but let's see. Get involved with open source projects. See if this tells you where there's a central place.
I was thinking places like GitHub.
Yeah, that's what this is implying. You go to GitHub, and I don't know if they got if they're interested in getting new people, but they probably have something on GitHub where you can volunteer. Let's see. Distribution, a collection of software containing the Linux kernel and libraries combined with add-on software specific to a certain use. Red Hat. It's interesting. Red Hat seemed to really be taking off for a while, and then some other flavors have really passed it now. So I don't know, what happened to where Red Hat wasn't like dominating the market. Of course, that'd probably be debatable on which one's the most popular. But Ubuntu seems to be one that's very user friendly, and when you think of setting somebody up such that they can use it and not have to buy Windows, and Ubuntu's what a lot of people think of. Linux is simply a byproduct of OSS development. Since 2000, there's been interest in embedded Linux. Linux operating systems are run on smaller hardware devices such as mobile devices. So you got less memory, and you can run it on a smaller machine. Because Linux is currently very well developed. Isn't Linux on is it PlayStation that has Linux, or you can't put Linux on it?
Linux was built off. I mean, the PlayStation operating system was built off of Linux.
Oh, was it? Oh, okay. Mind you, I've never, paid some pretty good money for my PlayStation. I never wanted to screw with it to break it. But I'd read that other people had, were doing different things with Linux on it.
So is the Raspberry Pi.
Oh, is it?
Yeah, it do run this.
The Raspberry Pi is very interesting for that. I tried it once in high school.
Oh, really?
I have them. It's pretty cool.
I'll have to eventually keep getting some of those other ones. That's
Yeah.
one of them I want to get, and
I have like the third model, I think.
I can't pronounce it, but there's an Arduino.
Oh, the Arduino boards.
Yeah. I want to get some of
I haven't
those.
got a chance to play with Arduino boards, but I heard they're used a lot in robotics lately.
Right. Yeah. So a lot of those I want to just experiment with, but my wife only lets me buy so much. So after my last Purple Wave purchase, she's you're not buying anything for a long time. But I was able to get a ton of computers. They're sitting all around here in the lab. So I realized that if I have a hardware design and so forth, that I got to have parts, and I had zero parts, so that's why I went to Purple Wave. Let's see. As Linux is currently very well developed, more application development can be expected from the OSS community next decade. For our Linux distributions may appear different on the surface, but run the same kernel. Idea is that you keep your foundation. You don't rewrite every bit of code, but then you keep improving it, like I say, on the surface. What it looks like and so forth. I've been told that when they do Windows, they did the same thing. They just keep taking the source code and modifying it, and never rewrite it from scratch. I'm not sure if that's true with Windows 7. I know when they went to one of the architecture, they were talking about redoing the code. Whether they rewrote it from scratch or not, I don't know. They're talking about in the early days of Windows XP or something like that. If you looked at source code, it had so much of the DOS stuff in it. That's what it's built upon.
Did they restart with Vista or 7? Because I thought that
It was the Vista where they redid the code completely?
I think so. Because
Okay.
that's where they made that jump. Because 7 is almost identical to Vista, except for the weird.
Oh.
So I think it was. I might be wrong, but.
Nah, I expect you're probably right. But even then, they probably kept some of the same, a lot of the same software and so forth. Because it's interesting, you can still do DOS commands. So. Some distributions include a large number of server-related tools, such as web servers and database servers. When you go to download a distribution, If you're going to use it for a server, then you pick the server version because it's set up for the networking and so forth. Some of them are just set up for a single computer, and they don't have that all those utilities, DNS and so forth. Was trying to think if you'd ever, I don't know, you might want your own web server on your own computer though, because if you're a developer, that's kind of useful.
Yeah.
Database server is probably overkill, but who knows what you're doing from a development standpoint. Most distributions include a GUI that can be further customized to suit the needs of the user. Core component of this GUI is X Windows. Not all distributions though, because part of it is that some of them provide toolkits, such that you can hack in and so forth, and maybe you don't want that GUI side. Though it's interesting. I was looking at, if I'm saying it right, Kali. The other day, and it looks like it's got a this is one for penetration testing, ethical hacking. As I was looking at this screen right here, it looks like they've started focusing a lot more on the graphical side. This is what you use if you want to hack in. But it's also what you use to learn how to protect your systems. But this used to be way back when. I don't remember there being a graphical side to it. So, and then I used, I think it was Kali I used, where it had the graphical side, but then all the utilities were pretty much command driven. There was no click here, click here, click here, and so forth. You'd be shocked at how many tools are available out in this distribution. For your GUI environment, X Windows in combination with Windows Manager and desktop environment affects the look and feel of the Linux GUI. And two competing GUI environments in Linux. GNU Object Model Environment, but I'm pretty sure that's pronounced GNOME, not GNOME. But that's how I drew a blank. I was trying to think. I'm not sure if I've heard anybody ever pronounce it. KDE, K Desktop Environment. Some Linux distributions include specific language support. Example, Turbo Linux, with increased support for Japanese and Chinese. Never heard of Turbo Linux.
There was that option in VirtualBox.
Was there?
Yeah.
And this shows what desktop looks like here. It's like activities up here, your power supply over here. This is the format of the Windows versus the KDE, which just has the desktop option here, nothing over here. One of the questions they'll ask you in the virtual lab is, which desktop does it look like? And so when you compare this, you'll be able to see it. And I downloaded it, if I can remember where I put it. Probably in my download section. I downloaded a distribution here shortly, so we'll try to set that up on VirtualBox. Sometimes I actually need the steps in front of me to do it, but we'll see. Package Manager, software system that installs and maintains software. Red Hat Package Manager, the most widely supported package manager. You got software you want to install, And if you had to go to the individual site like Windows, it's kind of a nightmare. So this is all in one place in Linux, and so you can download it there. Doesn't mean you can't download it from the site directly, but they've tried to provide a manager so you can easily bring down the data. Tarball, compressed archive of files containing scripts that install software to the correct location on the system. Difficult to manage, upgrade, or remove from the system. Sometimes these installations put so many files in different locations that it is a challenge to actually get something removed from your system. Windows, does a fair job. Not perfect, but if you go and uninstall a software, it tries to clean up the registry and everything so that nothing's left. It's not always true because after you get done installing, there's always like remnants left in the registry, and I'm not sure why, but it doesn't seem to really work completely. But a package manager is meant to try to help with that. Package managers have become the most common method for installing software. Got our Red Hat Linux, one of the earliest Linux distributions. One is commonly used within organizations today. Two distributions Red Hat available: the Enterprise distribution geared for enterprise environments, and the Fedora distribution geared for all environments. Fedora is a big one they use at Wichita State. So if you're going to Wichita State, Fedora is one that they told me they use. The enterprise, why you'd have a enterprise is has more software, obviously, to handle some of the security, some of the requirements of a larger corporation. But more than that is you can pay for support on some of these distributions. Because if you're running a Red Hat Linux, if something gets broke, the update gets pushed out and breaks 500 computers, you want somebody to call. You don't want to be sitting there waiting for a reply in your form. Manager asks you next day, is that fixed? Well, I'm waiting to see if anybody replies. And it's like, next day, is that fixed? No, and so that's not a good situation.
Right.
So companies like to pay for it. I'm not sure how you pronounce this. Susie? Seuss? Linux? Is it Seuss? Not sure if I've never dealt with that very much, if at all. Originally developed primarily in Europe, it's the oldest business-focused Linux distribution. Novell purchased it to replace its NetWare OS. So they packaged it with Novell. Interesting. I used to use NetWare, the operating system, one of the companies I worked at. And so I was wondering what happened with NetWare. So it looks like they went to Linux. Slackware Linux, the oldest Linux distribution, is currently maintained. Basis for many other Linux distributions, so forth. Mainframe, ARM. I may be wrong. Debian might be what. I'll look that up, see what WSU said they're using. Debian rings a bell too, but might be for other reasons. Ubuntu, Linux Mint, Turbo Linux. Oh, here's Turbo Linux. It's common in Asia. It's famous for its clustering abilities. Common uses of Linux. Linux may be customized to provide services for a variety of companies in a variety of situations. It's when you got the source code, you can completely customize it. But they don't mean that. They mean that the system is set up such that it's very flexible. Tons of options you can have in files. That does not mean that that Windows is any less flexible in that regard. It can be customized quite a bit. In Windows, they use something called a registry. You go into regedit and bring it up, and this is where all of your settings are for your programs. If I want to paint.net, if I want to modify, there's really nothing there. Application description. It says paint.net allows you to create and edit images and photographs using a wide array of tools and so forth. If I want this to have a different description, I come up here and say, this paints images. Don't know what I just broke there. I'm guessing if I go on paint.net, somewhere it'll say this paints images. These are settings, and there's a ton of them in here. Well, Linux again has the same concept. Is you can customize it quite a bit. A lot of them are saved in configuration files, and so you can use the configuration files to make those changes. Workstation services used on a local computer. And then you got your server services made available for other computers across the network. Used for your internet servers. I have 2 or 3 websites. One of them is mathheals.com, and I think it's on a Windows server. I don't think it's on a Linux server. And I kind of regret that because it has some issues. It's not as stable. I don't maintain it, but it's had issues in the past. I put it on a Windows server for a specific reason because I wanted to develop web apps in Visual Studio and put the programs up there. And I did that, and then it worked and so forth. And it was just a very basic program. I think where I added 2 numbers. Nothing exciting, but it was proof I could develop in Visual Studio and upload the result. And it was probably about 6 months after that the Chinese hacked into me. And according to Network Solutions, they said it was because of something I was running. And I've read different things that they get hacked into quite a bit from the Chinese. So it might not have anything to do with it, but I deleted that that program I had uploaded because I guess it opens up a possibility where you can overload the input and have it install a rootkit of sorts. So I deleted it. By the way, I was not happy that I was hacked into, but I was somewhat pleased on what they did. They were selling fake Nike and Gucci bags. You could see it, the writing and so forth, but they were hosting off of my site. Unfortunately, their business was so robust that it was bringing my site to a crawl. All my students were saying, I can't go to your site. It just goes so slow and so forth. Now, I say I was kind of happy because they could have been like doing something really illegal and had the FBI come to my door about the child pornography that was on my site. So fake Gucci and Nikes I was happy. They were acceptable. Yeah. Wasn't happy they were using my server. 2 of the other servers, I went ahead and put them on Linux, though, because Linux is more stable. It does not go down. I mentioned this before. Windows boxes, you had to reboot once a week, once every 2 weeks type of deal. You schedule reboots because you need them to free up the memory. Linux, maybe once every 6 months. File and print servers, application servers, all for the same reason: stability, the security, so forth. cloud systems. I don't know about the cloud systems. I have to think about that. I've never seen a company really use a cloud system for a production environment, but I expect there wouldn't be anything wrong with it. I think that's where it's headed. I think servers are a thing of the past. I think eventually the servers will all be maintained on the cloud. So you have some Linux company that's offering all these Linux servers that you can connect to. I think it's a ways off because I don't think the technology is there yet. Um, Now, when I say that, last semester I had one individual that didn't realize they had to have a Mac. They were at home for iOS development. And so I guess I never put that in the requirements, which is a valid thing. I guess I just assumed, which was bad. So I was investigating how can they run that Mac at home, and I signed up for a service Mac in the cloud.
Yeah, yeah, I know you're talking about.
Yeah, and because I wanted to see if I could give them a alternative where they wouldn't have to buy this expensive machine, and it worked, but it was slow. It didn't have the robustness, and that was one of the better ones on the market from what I could find. So, like I say, I think there's a little bit of development, a little bit of growth has to go on before this really takes off. Though I am still considering that for future, because as the Macs here in the lab become outdated, what do I do? The college is probably not going to pitch out another $30,000 for new Macs.
Yeah, I
So
think that the cloud system will become more seamless as we go into it.
that's what I'm hoping. When the new machines are needed, that I can go and just do that.
There's already like Windows ones. I was talking about that shadow thing yesterday,
Uh-huh.
or the day before, and it's extremely fluent, and the latency is it's minuscule.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so Windows is already heading in that direction, and they have massive servers.
Yeah, I think as they improve the backbone of all the different connections, I think you'll see these things will become the wave of the future.
Right.
It already is. We don't like our Blackboard that you're on. We don't have a machine here that houses that. That's housed by the Blackboard Corporation. We don't make any changes to it. We set up users maybe. Probably don't even do that. We probably send a list of users to them. They do it all. Used to be we'd have one person on site here that maintained that server software. I think there's only one college, and I teach for different colleges during different semesters, and there's only one college I know of that still maintains their own server, and that's Southwestern College. And no, is that good? Is that bad? It's a wave of the future. They don't have to have people hired to maintain the servers. Supercomputers. I've never read Linux being used as a supercomputer, so I'm not sure where that anything on that.
Is that a zip file download for you?
Yes.
Okay. It did for me too. I didn't know where you were.
Scientific workstations, office personal workstations, mobile devices. Most common internet services, mail services. This is good and bad. You can use that spam the mail services a lot easier than Windows. With Windows, if you try to use Outlook directly, write a program to use Outlook, there's pieces built in to prevent you from spamming. You still can do parts of it, but I never have figured a way around it. Through the program, you can have it create the emails, but it won't send them. So it'll open them, and if you got 500 emails you're creating, it'll have 500 windows open where you have to go and click send. Not a huge thing, but they're trying to prevent malicious items from happening. Used to be here at Cali, you could always tell when we were hacked into because the server would be going really slow, and sometimes it'd be going really slow when it shouldn't be going slow. And what they would do is they would hack into us and they'd send spam from our servers. Um, Now the benefit of that is that when you send spam from somebody else, they're the ones get blacklisted and so forth. And you don't have to use your own resources and a lot of good things. Routing services, FTP services, FTP. We'll be talking more about that as the semester goes on. Is FTP good? Does anybody know? It still exists.
I'm not sure what it is. You know?
File transfer protocol, I think is what it stands for. And it's a way of transferring files. And some places don't like to open up a FTP because it opens up security issues.
Yeah.
I like it because you can have this like a window. You have a window open here, and you have your file explorer open, and you can transfer the files back and forth so easy.
Yeah.
But it is an issue.
I've never used that
before. Well, I'm pretty sure one of the labs use it, but if not, I'll set it up so we can use it, just so we see what I mean. It's nothing exciting. You just connect to your FTP and you transfer your files. But firewalls and proxy services, web services, news services, DNS services. I don't think the news services is probably as widely used as it used to be. For our mail services, we got our mail transfer agent, MTA, an email server used to distribute email. Examples: SendMail, Postfix, SMail, and QMail. Besides being, that says an agent, and some of these have a interface. But the beauty of Linux programs is that you can set it up in a program, such that you can automate sending emails. So that if you have a process running, it's scheduled to run in the middle of the night. If something goes wrong, you can automatically have it email you through one of these agents and let you know that your upload didn't work. So first thing coming in the morning, you're looking, and if you have your text set up with your email, I can't do that through TrackPhone, but if you have a good provider, you can set that up. They sends an email, you automatically receive the text and says, "Hey, upload didn't work." You receive that in the middle of the night. Maybe you can go fix it before everybody comes in the next day and they're upset. So it provides a lot of flexibility from a programming standpoint in that regard. Looking at just these first labs, you may look at it, it's like, well, this is not much different than Windows. You click on a nice little GUI and so forth. And that's not the true power of Linux. The true power of Linux is being able to take scripting and merge that together with these utilities to automate, to simplify your lives and so forth. Mail delivery agent, MDA service that downloads email from an MTA. Examples: ProcMail and FetchMail. Mail user agent, a program that allows email to be read by user. Mutt, Pine, PrintMail, Elm, Mail, Netscape, and Eudora. Some of these I've used, some of these I've never seen. I've used Pine, I've used Elm. I think I've used Mail, but it's been a while. I never used Netscape or Eudora on Linux for the mail. Mutt I've never used. Now for our routing provides interconnection between separate networks. Core service necessary for the internet to function. Linux provides support for routing and is easily customizable. And a router, a computer or special hardware device provides interconnection between separate networks. FTP, file transfer protocol, most common and efficient method for transferring files over the internet. Um, Also commonplace when transferring files on an internal company network. Most FTP servers available on the internet allow any user to connect. Called anonymous FTP servers. Most OS are distributed with an FTP client program. Um, Trying to think what the program is. Secure FTP, I think. Um, this is what I was talking about. FTP by itself has some issues, and secure FTP is a broad term refers to two different technologies can encrypt both authentication information and data files in transit. Um, because FTP by itself has some security issues. There's another technology that's out besides secure FTP to provide a transfer of files in a little bit more secure manner. Because what happens if you don't encrypt or do any of the security and you're sending your files across the internet? Anybody can, yeah, anybody can have them. You know, not a big issue in some cases. You know, it's like you're uploading a web page like I do on my server. I like FTP because I can just take it here, drag and drop it. I don't care if anybody steals the file because it's already out on the web page.
Yeah.
It's like knock yourself out. But if you have secure files you're trying to transfer, FTP by itself again may not be your best solution. Let's see. I don't know why, but for a while, anonymous FTP servers was really frowned upon. A lot of places shut it down, and I think it was creating a legal issue because it seemed like every server, Linux server, Unix server, had a place where you could upload files, so you could exchange files. I could upload it and say, okay, here, Jesse, here's the files. Well, if I'm using company resources or whatever your organization is, and I'm uploading things I shouldn't be uploading, um, uh, distributions for a software that's legally obtained, then I'm using the company's resources to commit a crime. And so they're really anonymous FTP servers you don't see as much as you used to.
Is it all like, um, does Microsoft keep like their servers of FTP, or is it like its own standalone?
You know, I haven't read about how they do their cloud storage. You know, but that is a good question. You know, do they monitor it all what's uploaded?
Right. Yeah.
You know, if you upload illegally obtained software, so you could give it to 500 people.
Right, like a Windows 10 ISO.
Right. You know, because that's or even if it's software you own, you're uploading and storing it up there, and other people can access it.
Yeah.
You know, some of that music sharing was that issue, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, because you own the software maybe, so you're uploading it, but it's in a place where anybody can download it.
Sony actually had a lawsuit against that happening. They used what website? Like it's like Media Share or something. It's like just a media sharing website. And they'd upload movies to it, and Sony had to sue them.
Yeah, that says issues there. Now, anonymous
That was the
means
media fire incident, wasn't it?
Hmm?
Media fire.
Yes, thank you. I was trying to
Yeah.
think of the name. Yeah, the media fire.
yeah, see, anonymous is even worse because you don't know who did it. With at least with if you got your own cloud account, you can track back who it is. So yeah, the anonymous just wasn't a good idea to begin with, but it looks like it still may be done. Your firewall protects companies from outside intruders on the internet. Linux has firewall support built into the kernel. Allows companies to control what traffic is allowed into their network. Now I'm drawing a blank, and I shouldn't be because I've used it before. And Windows Defender, is that a firewall?
It's just an antivirus software thing.
Is it just antivirus?
It might be firewall, but I think that's a separate aspect of Windows. I may be wrong, but it's just a built-in antivirus thing. I don't use any antivirus. I use Windows Defender because I don't like all the adware, different like AVG or Norton, like that type of stuff. They always request for you to sign for the license.
See, Windows Defender does have a firewall feature, but I never have investigated. But they're again trying to include it with their operating system.
My firewall's turned on, so maybe that's what it is.
Could be. I probably shouldn't do it, but I think I usually try to get rid of Windows Defender.
Really?
Yeah, I just
You don't care for it?
no.
What do you
Uh,
use? Vast?
I use Avast, and although I haven't talked my wife into buying it yet, I want to upgrade Avast to the robust version and have malware bites because both of them serve a different purpose.
Right.
Um,
I used Bitdefender
mhm.
and then Windows Defender. Like I use Windows Defender on this, but on my main gaming rig, I used to use Bitdefender.
And I couldn't even tell you why I'm not a big fan of Windows Defender. It's been so long that I think at one point in time it didn't like you running other packages.
They've changed it a
Have they?
lot since then.
Oh,
Windows,
okay.
Windows 10 is so much better. Oh, it's so much better.
And see, from my standpoint, I don't go to many places I shouldn't. I pretty much do work on my computer at home. If I want to play, I'll get on my PlayStation. But my wife and son, they go all over the place. My son goes these sites where you can read comics online and so forth, and I know they're just lousy with viruses, and so I want like the best protection I can, just because I don't want them bugging me. Why is this coming up? It's because you go to every site in the world. And quit going to those sites, and you won't have that trouble.
Those keys currently defined as right.
I'm not very good IT support, I guess, for my family.
I have to be able to IT stuff.
Yeah, it's just
They come with most petty, petty.
yeah. It's like let's just reset it. So I don't want to figure out what you broke. Allows companies to control what traffic is allowed in their network. Proxy. You think this would be used more, and it seems like I see companies try to use it, then they stop, and so forth. I think it's maturing. I think with the firewall, they can control a lot more of what's coming in. Used to be they block things that it shouldn't, and they'd have to manually make exceptions in the firewall. And proxy server requests internet resources such as websites and FTP sites on behalf of the computer inside the company. Common proxy server used on Linux is Squid.
Okay, I got Ubuntu set up to do that.
Oh, did you? Okay.
OSBox is actually really handy, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't I mean you didn't have to do much to set it up, right? Just like add the file and
I used the quick add and then it asked what operating system it was, and all I did was do Ubuntu, and then the next thing it asked for the existing hard drive file, and it's done.
yeah. Yeah, that's when you had all those settings earlier. It's like I've never done that.
Yeah,
I don't even know what all those settings are.
I usually set it up manually, and whenever
Uh-huh.
I did that Mac OS one, that was ridiculous with the setting up. It was such a pain. I had to open up command prompt and like partition a drive and trick it, but like I formatted it to the whatever
Uh,
the Mac one was.
yeah, all those questions you were asking me earlier, I had no clue what the answer was because I'd always I download the appliance and I like file open.
Yeah, this was way more seamless than what I usually have to go through. I'm gonna start using this more
um, what he's was talking about is that if you want to set up your own Linux or whatever, Oracle has this virtual box that you can set up, and the website. I always have to Google it because I can never remember. What is it? OS?
OSboxes.org.
OSboxes.org. And if you come here, you can find different images. Like if I go to VirtualBox images, and you come down here, you pick the distribution you want. Like earlier, I think we picked what did we pick? Ubuntu.
Yeah.
Okay. Go down to Ubuntu.
And then we pick like the cuttlefish.
Yeah. And then here's VirtualBox VDI image. Comes up with about
Thousands of different versions.
thousands of different versions. And downloaded this VirtualBox here. Downloaded this file here for the Cosmic Cuttlefish. And
it does
then
have a password on the account when you set it up though.
yeah, most of them do.
It's in that info thing. If you click on it, it shows the
Oh,
username and password and stuff you have to enter.
Well, that's useful. Usually I'm going to the website trying to,
Yeah.
or I'm guessing. There's one I downloaded the other day and I was sitting there guessing because usually for your root account, they have like, sometimes it's password, sometimes it's blank, sometimes it's root spelled backwards, TOOR. And so I was trying all those possibilities. One of them worked. I don't remember which one it was.
My Windows 7 ISO that I grabbed off of my torrent browser,
Mm-hmm.
it was like Tor was the password, and they didn't say that
Yeah.
anywhere whatsoever. I had to go into one of the XML files for the profiles that were pre-installed on there, find out the password was Tor.
That's oftentimes one you see, though. That's
Yeah.
a standard, is root spelled backwards.
This one was TORR, like Tor for torrent browser.
Oh,
Because I got it off.
okay.
I got it off of.
Then that's different than root spelled backwards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That reminds me.
Let's see. Web services, web servers host information, can process programs known as Common Gateway Interface CGI scripts and enable connection to a resource network which is not connected to the internet. Can use single socket layer SSL or transport layer security TLS to provide secure connections. A lot of times, if you go in with a commercial web service, you have to pay extra for these. Many open source web server software packages are available for Linux. Most commonly used is Apache Web Server. So you got your Linux server. This is a software that you install and configure and run such that it handles your websites. So you can have multiple www.mathheals.com, www.cali.edu on it, and you configure it. When you have a www dot and then the name, you can have something in front of that. Like you could have cis.mathheals.com. And Apache, you basically can configure that to say if it starts with CIS, it goes to this folder. So it handles all that. That's what Apache is.
Oh.
It's actually Apache's pretty easy to install. Takes a while to configure. That's what I set up that intranet at IFR with, was Apache server. You know, it's a piece of cake to install, but then to configure it, that's where I had to go and buy the O'Reilly book and read how to configure all the the settings. Um, by the way, the early days of Windows, I think that it's very similar to Linux. And I'm wondering if Linux will advance into more Windows type environment. The early days of Windows, every program had its own INI file, and that's where the settings were at. And I don't even know if you could find any INI files anymore. Oops, I mean go to code blocks. Let's go in this command prompt. See if I can remember how to do this. It's been a while. dir ini/r. No. Anyway, there's a couple of ini files, and global data.ini. Your ini files would look like this. So you'd have brackets around them, and then you have these. And if you went in and manually changed this, then you could have it point to something else or have a different setting. Install.ini. Oops, edit. That DOS program doesn't exist anymore. This is what you'll see when you look at the configuration files in Linux. Is just bunches of items like this. Now, if you want to change something to go to a different folder, you come here, you type in a new folder. Product support URL. That's if somebody maybe requests support. This tells them where to go. So, of course, you could figure out what you could do then. Yeah. Go to hword.com. You can change that, and you screw with somebody, right? So they choose support in their package, and then all of a sudden it's going to some other site. Same way with Linux. If you have a rootkit you can put on there, you can change this setting here. Now this is all stored in that one database I showed you in Windows that I regedit. Right now you're going to find over in Linux there's tons of configuration files. And when I say I'm wondering if they're not going to go to the Windows model someday, but I'm wondering if they'll take all those configuration files and put them in one central program. So you bring up that central program, and that's where you edit and you make any changes. To me, that makes more sense than the 10,000 configuration files on your server. But okay. News services. News servers allow users to post messages in forums called news groups. Most web servers do not provide means for users to communicate. I'm not sure if these are really used that much anymore. They might be. News groups are sometimes referred to as computer bulletin boards. Boy, that's really dated. OSS developers use news groups to exchange information and coordinate software creation. The most popular news server available for Linux is called Inner Networking News, INN. This service has probably been integrated with a GUI, if I had to guess. I'm guessing people don't use it like they used to with the bulletin boards. For your DNS services, computers communicating on a network need to be uniquely identified. Each computer is assigned Internet Protocol address, IP, long string of numbers, allows computers to identify and reference each other. IP address. In Windows. See if I can remember the command. I think it's ipconfig. Yeah.
It's not picking up my Thunderbolt USB Type C.
Oh, it
may
isn't?
be because I didn't go into the settings and enable USB Type 3.
Oh.
that may need to be done if you're using type 3 ports
I don't know.
on the PC.
Now here's an IP address here. 10.190.40.26. So again, an IP address. Allows computers to identify and reference each other. Fully qualified domain name, FQDN, masks IP addresses, user-friendly names. I'm not sure if I've ever seen this done. But I suppose if you could automate it, that wouldn't be bad. Because then you know that 10 dot is David Hayes versus trying to figure out some other way. So that might not be too bad in that regard. Used to be that they mapped those addresses to individual, and that was a nightmare because then as people kept changing and so forth, it was a constant change to the database, to the mapping. And so oftentimes the DNS services is done dynamically now. You don't always get the same number. It gives you a new number. Domain naming service DNS servers maintains a list of proper FQDN to IP mappings. Linux is well suited for centrally sharing resources. More economical to share files and printers over a network. Is an inherently fast and light operating system. Distribution is specific to specific tasks can be installed in a central server. Can share resources with the computer running another OS. Most common service used to allow clients to connect to shared information printers on a Linux server is Samba. I'm not sure about some of the statements here because I've never worked with the Windows side. So I couldn't tell you how hard that is compared to this, how much overhead there is. Windows is pretty easy to set up a printer anymore. You don't even have to have the drivers. Oh, go ahead, Jesse.
There is problems I encounter with Windows and printers where it's like if I send something to print, it'll take more than 8 seconds for the actual thing to register. Whereas with Linux, it only ever took me 2 seconds for the printer to start printing.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
I was thinking about, I don't know if it's possible, but I'm going to buy a second M.2 SSD.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to take out my Windows one and slot that one in and get Ubuntu installed on that, and then reslot my other one. And I'm taking it out just so I don't risk losing anything on there.
Oh,
so it doesn't format my drive.
Right.
And then I'd have 2 operating systems on the 2 separate drives.
Yeah.
And just set the boot order for whichever one I want to use at the time.
See, if I wasn't using the laptop, I would do something similar where I run a RAID system so I could have both the Ubuntu and the Windows.
Right. Yeah, so I'm doing that, but it is on my laptop. I have a 6-core CPU in it, so I can give it more. And then it has a dual M.2 instead of one 2.5-inch drive big.
See, I always liked using those VirtualBox and those type of programs because then I can use the same screen capturing software that I have from my Windows.
Yeah.
I can use it for that. That's the only reason I really like those. Although I expect if I probably looked long enough, I'd probably find an equivalent to this Snagit on Linux.
I gave this virtual machine 11 gigs of RAM, and it's pretty fast. It doesn't need much. And then my GTX 1070, it's only utilizing 128 megabytes of my 8,000.
Application servers, intermediary between a client computer and information, usually database. Database organized collection data, DBMSs, Set of program was designed to allow for the creation and so forth of the databases. Um, Application servers can provide management functionality. Cloud systems, a large collection or large system of computers work together to provide a wide set of services to users, organizations across the internet, Facebook, Amazon. Who is it that's doing a lot of the cloud hosting? Is it Amazon now? I think it's Amazon. There was an issue where I think it was my server was down, and they were using Amazon's cloud service in some way. They were. I don't think they were hosting it directly on Amazon, but it was providing some of the backbone.
I've used the Gmail cloud, but I don't think I've ever tried to use the Amazon cloud.
Yeah, and I don't know how they were actually using it, but they were trying to figure out why my website was down, and had to do with Amazon outage.
PayPal.
Yeah. Most cloud systems run Linux in a cloud-based configuration using cloud software, collectively called a cloud platform. OpenStack is one of the more popular open source cloud platforms available. I don't think I've ever played with that.
I had a project in high school that used OpenStack. We were trying to create a small server town for generating VMs of Peppermint for students to use for writing.
Oh, that's interesting. Did it go well?
We got partially through that project, and I actually graduated, and we left that to the next class.
Okay.
We called the project Server Town. It was at Washington, at a school called Marysville Arts and Tech. I can send you a link. It's on my LinkedIn.
Yeah. If you get a chance, send that to me. Supercomputers, clustering, combining several smaller computers to act as one larger supercomputer. Beowulf clustering, most common Linux method of clustering. Message passing interface (MPI) used on Beowulf clusters to pass information to separate computers. Scalability, the ability for a computer to increase workload as the number of processors increase. Um, Never heard of a company using this as a supercomputer, but scientific engineering workstation. They often need customized programs, can be used and modified to create specific scientific and engineering workstations. Probably closest that I've seen this is the engineers at IFR. They'd always have to have a lot of customization done. We'd have a Linux engineer specifically just to take care of the engineers. They were mainly electrical engineers, but of course your office personal workstation. You got different packages available. GIMP I've used. I don't really like it too well. Scribus I don't think I've ever used. VLC I've used. GNU Cache never used. Apache Open Office I've used. I thought they changed names. Maybe Open Office is their new name. Oh, it is Apache Open Office. BitTorrent clients.
I use that.
I've never used that yet. I'm determined now that I got all these spare computers. I can go to one of them, and if I get infected with something, then I'm not out anything. Well,
yeah, I'd recommend using Ubuntu because since Windows is more popular, it's people are looking for more ways to exploit Windows.
Oh.
So I used Ubuntu, and then by Windows 7 is where I did my primary torrent browsing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not familiar with Ubuntu, so I tried doing it. But as long as you got to do some VPNs and VM, it's fine.
Let's see, mobile devices following the introduction of the Apple iPhone in 2007. Android installed on over 79% of smartphones in North America. Other Linux distributions, I'm not going to go over that. Okay, summary. Linux is an operating system whose kernel and additional software are freely developed and improved upon by a large community, published under the license. Companies find it stable, low risk, good alternative. Available in different distributions, all having a common kernel, package different OSS applications. Wide variety of documentation resources exist. Okay. Linux is an extremely versatile operating system, provides a wide range of workstation and server services. I want to make sure I had time to show you what's on Blackboard. Now, initially, you have to go into your Red Shelf portal if you haven't gone into it and get your access code. And then at that point, under week 1, you'll have these different symbols here, whatever that is. This is the Mind Tap. And when you go into the first one, it should have you enter in your access code, and you shouldn't have to keep re-entering it if it's set up correct.
I do have a question about that.
Okay.
I am taking Intro to Computer Science right now as well, and I have a MindTap account already with percentage. Do I just copy that, paste that into my other account?
When you go into this, it shouldn't have you create a. You should be able to sign into your old account, but it'll have you put in an access code again.
All right. Okay.
Now the reading here is the textbook. So go through and read chapter, and then here's and this won't take you maybe 7 minutes. It's a pretty simple lab, but just kind of getting used to the format of it. If I click that, comes up here, you click Start Assignment. 4th try. Make sure I get it right. I wanted to make sure I had my ducks in a row before I came to class, so I was making sure I understood everything about it. And, so I click Start.
Record the Linux build number. You'll need it later. Observe the Linux boot process. You can see that when Linux boots, you'll be prompted to select a username and enter the password.
So
choose the username and password exactly as given in your instructions.
No, this is the lab connection. And it comes up here and it guides you what to do. It says to log in as a lab connection here, and then put in a password. P at SSW0RD.
The Fedora 21 build shown is a clean install of a GNOME 3. Most versions of Linux are free to download. A good place to find information and downloads is distrowatch.com.
What if I go to some place else?
Open the Activities menu and choose Firefox. Enter the web address as given in your instructions.
Distrowatch.
View the available packages and distributions.
.com. And
close the browser when you're finished.
Let me click somewhere here. No. And
click Next to proceed.
Then it goes to some questions. Comes up here and it tells you the number over here. And then we put in put in value here. You think the answer is? If you answer it incorrect, it doesn't care. You can do it multiple times. So, and you may not remember this from the PowerPoint, but what is this? Developmental or production, or beta or test?
This is
Developmental, isn't it?
Yes, because that 19, if it's an odd number there, that means developmental. So I choose that.
Odd evens.
Yeah. How about this? If I remember right, it was gnome. Yeah. And then it comes up and tells you, okay, you answered 4 out of 5 correctly. Your score is 80%. Tells me what I what's the minor number of this? So it tells me what was wrong. Tells me the page number where it's at in a chapter. But again, you can take this over and over. So the fact that you didn't get 100% here, it doesn't matter. You can redo it. And then let me close that. And I got that here. It says multiple attempts. That's due Wednesday. Here's a review. This is brings up the PowerPoints that I just had. So if you want to go through those, you can. Here's the reinforced as flashcards. I'm not sure if this is too meaningful, but I went ahead and put that in there. This is not for a grade, by the way. This flashcard.
Will those count for attendance?
No.
Okay.
No, they're just if you want extra practice. You come here and you flip the card. Person uses a computer. So some of these aren't that great of
yeah.
But
I'll keep that one.
we definitely can skip the ones that are kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
And get to the ones maybe you don't know if you want to use this. These are all.
We can access these at all times, though, like the previous lessons.
Right. Yeah, you can use this at
So
any
if I
time.
want to come back and do a review before a test, we could read these through.
Right.
Okay.
Like if you're not sure about the kernel, then you come here, flip the card, and tells you what the kernel is. So it's kind of good for definitions. Right. Yeah, this interactive quiz down here is for one attempt, 90 minutes, and is due basically a week from today, Wednesday, January 23rd. And it's multiple choice. Sometimes I have trouble with MindTap. But if you can get the textbook open in a separate window, that works out real well. Because then any you don't know, you can easily look up, or not easily, but in that amount of time. But let's see. Okay, I got my textbook open there. Let me try to right-click if it'll let me. I already played with it one time. Open that in a new window. There's my textbook, and looks like I can't open up my in two separate windows. Seemed like I had trouble with that last semester. Did you?
Yes.
Now all I did.
I was having trouble in the other class doing that during my first quiz.
And I don't know the pattern because I had trouble with it last semester, and the student said that's how they took the quiz. So I don't know if right-clicking it is the key and opening a new window. If you have one of them open in an incognito window and the other one not, I don't know. But anyway, the two assignments are this virtual lab here, and like I said, you saw how long it took me. So it's like it's just trying to get you used to it. And then this interactive quiz. Is there any questions on any of that?
When do you assign new work? Usually the Thursdays or Monday?
Probably a little bit of both, but I always give a week to do the work. It all depends on how long it takes us to cover the material. Any other questions?
So all that's done through virtual machine.
Yes. I haven't looked at every lab, but I'm pretty sure you don't even need to install it's good to have your own version of Linux or whatever flavor. Yeah.
I have my grandma's computer in the other room running on Linux, Ubuntu.
Oh, do you? Yeah. Yeah.
She was using Windows before, but she was having trouble with the bank and other stuff on her Windows laptop that was old. It was still running 95. It's actually a box-framed laptop from early 2002 or 2001.
Oh.
And it actually runs Linux pretty decently.
Yeah, that's a nice part about it is you don't need as many resources to run the version of Linux as you do Windows.
The laptop is like something you'd see out of a semi from that time. That's what it was used for that.
Yeah, that's what I got a ton of old computers I bought through the what's that called? Purple Wave. And but even the old ones I can see this would run Linux okay. So
another project I used to do in my high school was that we had a bunch of the Dell clamshell computers, and we refurbish them and just send them everywhere.
Yeah, that's one of my ideas is because I'm looking at there's another sale coming up for like 50 desktops, and I thought, well, if I could get those and install Linux on them, I could offer free computers for people in low income in the area. And that'd be a fantastic service for the community and also market the program. Got to see if my wife will allow me. So, well, I'll go ahead and stop the recording there. And if I